Tonight, few will make it. Just a year later, the third David, now with 3 children and the responsibility to devote more time to them, Jack decided to put a pause on his career. Unfortunately, this is when the alleged curse begins to claim their lives, as in 1959, while playing in the rain outside his house. Little 6-year-old Jack Jr. touched the metal door of a trailer that inexplicably carried a large electrical charge and was electrocuted until he fell face first into the snow on the ground, drowning instantly. This fatal event completely changed Von Erich's life. Upon hearing the news, he lost control and punched out the window of his car. In the following months, he resumed his career as a professional wrestler to cope with the loss. However, this did not stop Jack from continuing to fight to fulfill his dreams, as he wanted to gather enough money to retire and start his own wrestling promotion, which he achieved in 1982. However, by this year, the Von Erichs were already well known and loved throughout Texas, since their family life was always open to the public, so every sporting achievement of their sons immediately made the news or local newspapers. Now, as promoter Fitz, as everyone knew him, he set out to find new talents for his wrestling promotion, but he didn't have to look too far or go too far to find the next generation of superstars, pushing his son Kevin to wrestle in the same circuit that saw him retire. The World-Class Championship Wrestling, of which he had become president. As a single wrestler, Kevin proved to be a complete athlete. His flexibility and endurance positioned him as a natural and advanced acrobat for his time. His peculiar way of fighting barefoot also turned out to be a great way of getting word-of-mouth publicity. And the following year, in 1977, his brother David stepped into the ring to join the fight. David used to go out to fight with a yellow rose that matched his nickname, the Yellow Rose of Texas. The young man was not only the most talented wrestler in the Von Erich dynasty, but he had also proven to be a successful businessman by generating large profits from the sale of quarter horses. But his greatest success came precisely from the ring David, where he managed to position himself as one of the biggest contenders for the World Championship of the time, which he disputed on several occasions and failed to win against one of his rivals, who would later become one of the greatest legends of the sport, Ric Flair. By 1978, the third member of the group made his appearance on the scene, Kerry. He made his debut, causing a great impact on the audience because of his prominent physique and his enormous strength. The Brunerick brothers immediately proved to be capable of taking the family name to the highest level of the show, winning the heart of all of America immediately with their coordinated way of fighting and the charisma they demonstrated in the ring. They were all big television stars, recognized by everyone and everywhere. Unfortunately, what goes up must come down. In 1984, at the height of his fame, David was finally about to win the biggest prize in the circuit. The National Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight World Championship had scheduled him to win the title against his arch-rival, Ric Flair. Everything was set for his coronation, but before receiving his opportunity during a trip to Japan, where it was planned that he would obtain the title, fate made a cruel change as days before the star fight he was found lifeless in his hotel room. Apparently trying to reach for the phone, his friend and fellow wrestler Bruiser Brody found him. It is important to mention at this point that there is a rumor surrounding this tragic event, that Brody found him in an overdose and that he immediately ran to flush all these substances down the toilet before reporting the discovery as a kind of honokod among wrestlers, but this was never corroborated, as no one would want to tarnish the image of Texas's favorite son. The official version, on the other hand, indicates that he died due to a severe infection caused by gastroenteritis provoked by having eaten spoiled food. When he received the news, he was completely devastated, just like his brothers. But the world didn't stop turning, especially in sports entertainment. So Fritz held a televised farewell ceremony mass and received the visit of over 30,000 fans who came to say goodbye to the Yellow Rose of Texas. Not enough with this, the opportunity to win the title against Ric Flair was given to his brother Kerry, who fought that same night for the championship, obtaining the award amid the excitement and joy of all the fans, but above all of the family, as he had just fulfilled his brother's destiny. Since the original plans were for David, the wrestling company immediately decided to take the title from his brother, leading him to lose it to Flair just a couple of days later, becoming one of the most ephemeral reigns in the company. Kerry Von Erich had then become the face of the family in the media, but with this came the constant pressure to become a good example for society and a hero for children. However, very few people knew about his arrest record for possession of this little herb of happiness or driving under the influence of alcohol. In addition, we cannot overlook the fact that he had recently lost his brother and companion. 2 years after David's death in 1986, Kerry had an accident while speeding on his motorcycle and crashed full force into the back of a police car. His hip was dislocated while his leg was completely shattered. The doctors had to amputate it. After the accident, Von Erich developed a strong addiction to painkillers and other medications, but despite this, he continued to wrestle every week using a prosthetic leg. The pain he had to endure to keep going with the show was indescribable, as he couldn't slow down his performances and no one could find out about his accident, as this would cost him contracts and the opportunity to continue in the ring. Despite this, in the 90s, he received a contract from the World Wrestling Federation, now known as the World Wrestling Entertainment, the largest sports entertainment company, where he changed his name to Texas Tornado, but the announcer continued to use his previous name, as it was impossible for him or any of his brothers to shake off the surname invented by their father. Unfortunately, the supposed curse of the Bonerichs was about to claim a new victim, as in 1992, the wrestling company terminated his contract and he was forced to fight in the independent circle, which increased his addictions to illegal substances and painkillers until finally in 1993 he decided to take his own life by shooting himself in the heart with a .44 caliber gun, the same one he had given to his father as a Christmas gift. But the losses and tragedies for the family did not end there, as before Kerry's death, one of his younger brothers, Mike, had been introduced to viewers as another member of the group, hoping to fill the shoes that David had left. Unfortunately, Mike did not have the physical build of his older brothers, nor the athletic ability or camera skills that make a professional wrestler stand out. Those who knew him could assure that Mike never wanted to be a wrestler and was far from interested in the family business. However, Fritz's constant pressure and the need to please his father led the young man to risk his life every time he stepped into a ring, until in 1985 he suffered a shoulder injury that immediately led to an infection that caused him to go into toxic shock, where his body temperature reached 42. Naturally, this discomfort caused him incalculable brain damage, as he lost much of his ability to speak and his personality completely changed, having sudden outbursts of anger on various occasions. These conditions, coupled with the constant pressure from his father to fill his brother Mike's shoes, led him to develop a strong addiction to alcohol and sleeping pills. Until in 1987, he didn't attend one of the events he had scheduled, and that for the Von Erich family was unthinkable. Kevin went to look for him and found a note that he had taken his life in his apartment, which began a search throughout Texas that ended 4 days later, when he was found next to a lake inside a sleeping bag. He had ingested a dangerous amount of alcohol and painkillers that caused an overdose. After his death, the Fritz set up the same scenario as with David's death, selling tickets for $100 to witness his son's family farewell, earning the repulsion of his wife, evidently, who asked him for a divorce in 1992. But this was not the last life that this supposed curse seemed to claim, as we still have to talk about the youngest of the Von Erichs, Chris, who had spent his whole life watching his brothers fight, traveling with them and training to fulfill the dream of sharing the ring one day and being part of this renowned dynasty. But genetics was not so kind to the youngest of the brothers, as he was far from having their imposing physique, or at least their good health. Since he was a child, he had suffered from various respiratory diseases that ended up irreparably damaging his lungs. In addition, his bones were too fragile for the sport, leading to several fractures in simple training sessions with his brothers. Nevertheless, he tried to make his debut in the show during the year of 1990. However, due to his evident lack of abilities, he did not win the favor of the public, who expected great things from him because of his last name. Under the pressure this generated, he began to increase his dose of painkillers and illegal substances, one of the passions he also shared with his brothers, and which he admitted publicly, until a year later, he succumbed to the pressure and depression from the loss of his brothers, taking his own life with a gunshot. This leaves us with a total of 5 Von Erichs who lost the battle to life's blows and the suffocating grips of addiction problems that each one faced, in addition to depression. But what then happened to Kevin and Fritz, the last survivors of the curse? You're probably wondering. Fritz remained committed to his businesses, relentlessly searching for new talents. After the divorce, he never remarried, but he completely distanced himself from his only living son. In the end, he managed to fulfill his dream of taking his family's name to the top of sports training, even if it was for the wrong reasons, until in 1997, he was diagnosed with brain and lung cancer. It was after this diagnosis that one of his last conversations with his son Kevin took place, when he found him in his office with a revolver in his hand, and he said, "I would kill myself if I had the guts, but I don't have as much guts as your brothers." However, Kevin responded, "They are the ones who didn't have the guts to live. It takes courage to cling to life and not do the same as them." These words unleashed his father's fury, who immediately pointed the gun at him, asking him to retract his words, as his sons were not cowards. Once he lowered the gun, Kevin left the scene. A couple of months later, Fritz lost his life due to his illness. Kevin, for his part, retired from the fight in 1995, seeking to have a peaceful life away from fame and all the pressure his family had to go through day after day. He finally moved to Hawaii, where he got married and had 2 children who followed in the footsteps of their grandfather and father in the ring. Without a doubt, the Von Erich legacy will continue as long as there is sports training in wrestling. Unfortunately, the darkest part of the ring is the one that is not seen on television, where pressure and injuries are one of the most common ailments that each wrestler faces day by day. We can recall cases where even brain injuries have led them to commit acts like the one May carried out. Such is the case of the wrestler Chris Benoit, who suffered from traumatic encephalopathy derived from his years inside the ring. It is clear that these gladiators risk their physical, mental, and emotional health in order to become legends of the ring and to touch that precious sky that only a few manage to achieve, because it's electrifying to hear more than 20,000 souls chanting his name and his entire life. In upcoming years, we will see an adaptation of the life of these titans of the ring in which Zac Efron will play the role of Kevin, the last survivor of this dynasty. Some photos show this guy looking quite ripped. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the video, remember to follow my new Facebook page as Pepe Mystery MX.